So I had a few people ask me about this one type of problem on the worksheet, the one about the molar ratio. So I tell you what, let's try it and see if we can work on this together. So here I have another example. This one's not on your worksheet, but I think you'll understand it. Over here we have our balanced equation. You have to start with the balanced equation. So this one, remember those big numbers out front are called coefficients. And this refers to the number of moles of that compound that we're going to be using. The little numbers, those are subscripts, those determine what compound you have. So here it says that we have 2 iron oxides that will react with 3 carbons to give us 4 irons and 3 carbon dioxides. When we look at a molar ratio, which means that we're just looking at 2 different compounds within that reaction, any 2 compounds, we're going to compare, or we're going to use that molar ratio to be able to help us as coefficients in front of the numbers. So let's see this first example, see how it goes. I'm going to try to write on here. Hopefully it works. It says how many moles of carbon. So I'm going to say how many moles of carbon are needed to produce 8 moles of iron. So I'm going to come over here to iron and say I have 8 moles. Now, I only have to look at carbon and iron. That's it. I can ignore the iron oxide. I can ignore the carbon dioxide. I'm only worried about those 2 compounds that are in the question. Now, the other thing is that we always start with what was given to us in the problems, the numerical part given to us in the problems. We were told that we have 8 moles of iron times, and we're going to set this up like a unit conversion. And so here's where that molar ratio comes into play. We're going to use those coefficients to go between iron and carbon. So because I started with moles of carbon, I want I said that wrong. Let me try this one again. Because I started with moles of iron, it gives me moles of iron in the problem. I want the moles of iron to be here on the bottom. So I'm going to come up to that balanced equation. I'm going to find my iron and say, oh, look, for every 4 moles of iron, I need 3 moles of carbon. Okay, do you see where that 3 came from? 3 came from right up there. And then I'm going to grab my handy dandy calculator. Calculators are really, really good to use for tests. I'm actually going to grab my handy dandy calculator. I can do this one in my head, but let's just go ahead and type it in so I don't accidentally make another fool of myself. Okay, it's the answer I thought it would be. So this should give you 6 moles of carbon. Now let's try the second one. If you need to, pause and see if you can work it out and then come back. Now this one says how many moles of CO2 are produced from 0.25 moles of iron oxide. So we're going to start with our 0.25 moles of iron oxide. And then we're going to draw our little fraction line so we can do our unit analysis. On the bottom, I'm going to need the iron oxide. So I go to my balanced equation and I say, well, for every 2 moles of iron oxide, and again, that just came from right there, I'm going to have 3 moles of carbon dioxide. And I guess I should have mentioned this one before. I didn't do a very good job. If you have numbers that are on top, you multiply them. And if they're on bottom, you're going to divide. So for this one, whenever I plug it into that handy dandy calculator, I'm going to say 0.25 times 3 divided by 2. So in this case, I get 0.375. 0.375. My answer is going to be moles of carbon dioxide. If there is no number, if it's blank, we assume that it's 1. And let's see, what else did I need to tell you? Now, I'm not going to have you do this, but if you go further into chemistry, what you'll do is take this basic idea of molar ratio and that idea of changing grams to moles that we talked about before and combine those together. But for right now, we're going to keep them separate. You do problems of grams to moles, moles to grams, and then we have problems that deal with this idea of moles of one substance to moles of another. Hope that helped. Good luck.